Oh my god, it's day 199. That's weird. I don't ever like actually leave that part in, but in order to make sure that the mic is focusing on me and all the things, and also to help out with editing and everything, I start it all out with like saying the day over and over again. Also helps remember what day it is. And I just realized that the thing that I was just chanting, it's day 199. That's cool. That means it's almost day 200, which means we're like well past the halfway mark, and I didn't even like announce it. So that's weird. I did that last year. Forgot this year, but somebody did remind me in one of the videos, actually, in the comments. A Sudzer did point out that it was the halfway point. So that was cool. Liked that. Has nothing to do with what we're doing today. We're making loofah soaps, and it's a recipe, that I told you I'd be giving you back when we were doing the shea butter soaps. Really? So, yay, recipe day! I will tell you more about that recipe and all the weird things in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudzers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for day 199 of 365 days of soap. I've already said that. And today we're doing a recipe day. We are making the body buffers because people have been dying for me to bring them back in stock, and I thought, yeah, no, it's probably time to do that thing and to get things ready for the 2022 first season run. And so we are going to be doing that. Now, what is a body buffer, you ask? Well, it's a loofah, scrubby, in a soap, but I'm doing some weird things. One of those weird things is called, I still was playing with the Midwest soapery stuff, and I wanted to see if I could dye the loofahs. You know like when you get like the water and the vinegar and the little tablets to do like Easter egg dyeing? It's kind of like that process. I was thinking, what if I did that, but with micas? Would the loofah itself soak up enough color that you could be seen, in the thing. Like, so the loofah itself is a different color instead of just white? This was my thinking. The second weird thing that we're doing is actually not weird at all. It's a recipe, and it's a recipe that I told you about when we were doing the shea butter, 100% shea butter recipe. I think that's what that was. Yeah, and how it didn't really work. The idea that I had because of the amount of the unsaponifiables with the shea butter didn't really work out, but I started musing and thinking this would actually be really good cut 50-50 shea and coconut oil. So that's what we're playing with today. My hope is we're going to have a really big, beautiful, epic bubble from all of this, which will mean you'll get body exfoliation with a big, beautiful lather that could theoretically be used for like shaving. Although I've never really done a shave soap like this. I'm worried that this is going to be a little bit too much exfoliation. But anyway, let's go to the video. We'll talk about the recipe and the weird things that I'm doing with micas and everything there. Doing something weird. It's going to be cool. So yeah, things are getting weird today. But first up, a recipe. Ready? Here it is. It's right here. I screen capped it. And for those of you who say you can't read it, I mean, I don't know, because the other people say they can't read my handwriting. So there it is. I was talking about this a few months ago when we were doing the shea butter deep dive, and I didn't like a 100% shea because while it felt divine on the skin, the lather was not what I wanted it to be. So I told you that I had done a 50% shea and a 50% coconut oil soap, just a 2 oil recipe. And it was divine. All of the big bubble from the coconut and all the beautiful moisturizing properties of the shea. Now, if you go back and you look at the recipe that I screen capped from Soap Calc, it says that there's none conditioning. And we don't pay attention to that because Soap Calc, for the most part, sucks. I'm just giving you the measurements based on, something that you might be familiar with. Soap Calc, that is. Now, of course, we're also putting in copious amounts of kaolin clay within all of this. And the recipe at a 50-50 split between shea butter and coconut oil and a 5% super fat will yield, well, for that particular recipe, it will yield about 12 bars of this loofah soap thing that I'm doing. But I am actually tripling the batch so I can make 3 different versions of loofah soaps. And I did a weird thing because I've been playing with the Midwest Soapery micas and I wanted to play with them some more. So for the first one, I have dyed the internal loofahs a nice copper color, and I will be using this bright pink Busta Mauve for the color of the soap batter on the outside, but I will be using toasted coconut from Sierra Candles for the actual scent because it is a divine scent and I love it oh so very much. I am reasonably certain that that is going to discolor, however. Why? Because I saw so on their site. So, it's going to discolor. So really putting the pink in was really not necessary. But that's okay. And you will see look at that. Oh, discoloration is already starting, peoples. So in order to dye the loofahs, I actually soaked them in hot water and vinegar in basically equal parts with a copious amount of micas for like all night to see if they would get dyed. Now, because I used vinegar to hydrate the loofahs, essentially, I did not want to go too terribly high with my super fat because vinegar, when you start using it in soap, what it does is it consumes the lye. It consumes the lye and turns it into a new chemical compound, which is wildly different than what happens when you use say a citric acid, which also consumes the lye but turns it into a different chemical compound. We will actually be going over this in full detail in a few days. Vinegar versus citric acid and enhancing your lye solutions. But for that reason, I did not want to go over a 5% super fat because I knew that this vinegar that I soaked the loofahs in was going to increase the super fat. Okay, now next up in the loofah soaps will be the Shea and White Wood from Sierra, which is also absolutely delightful. And we will be using the, I believe, bright blue tinted loofahs. And Bronze Goddess for the base color and all of this. And working with that. So whether or not this one discolors, and I'm reasonably certain it doesn't discolor or not a lot. Either way, doesn't super matter. I'm really hoping that the blue for the loofah shows up. Now, going back to the why did I know that the actual soap would be more heavily super fatted than 5%? Well, again, because those loofahs were saturated in an equal part of water and vinegar, and I squeezed them out before I put them in the thing. But in order to dye them, using vinegar to help the color actually transmit, right? Just like you do with Easter eggs. And vinegar, as I said, again, consumes the lye and increases the super fat by I don't know, anywhere between 3 and 8%, which is not insignificant if you think about it. And so I didn't want my my starting point of the super fat to be too terribly high because I knew that there would be a lot of unsaponified fatty acid chains kind of hanging out in these, which is really what I wanted. I wanted the moisturizing properties and I want of the shea butter and obviously the big bubble payout from the coconut oil, which should saponify easier than the shea because shea has a pretty high amount of unsaponifiables. So that's what I was going with this. And again, I really am going to be talking about vinegar and citric acid and how that changes how much lye is actually in your soap recipes in just a few days for a lye additive / enhancements deep dive, which will be a lot of fun, I promise. And the last video, Jesus, same video. The last soap will be the Blackberry Sage, also from Sierra Candles. I also love that one oh so very much. And the base color will be a bright blue, the same blue that we used to dye the internal loofah for the last soap. And the inside loofah portion is dyed a bright pink that busts a mouth. Because, fun, whatever. Now, going back to when we were talking about the 50-50 split of the shea butter and coconut oil. The shea butter soap, it felt delightful on the hand. It felt so good. But it felt very moisturizing, very conditioning, but it had none lather. And I didn't like that. So I really did want to play with adding coconut oil to shea in equal parts to get kind of the best of both worlds. So the big bubble payoff plus the very moisturizing properties. Because again, a loofah soap is by definition an exfoliating soap. And I just said again, like I've explained loofah soaps in this video, I have not done so. I've done so many times before on the channel though. And so I'm just assuming that you've watched all of my things. But that's a weird assumption. Let's go check out this cut and this test. Okay, now so on to the cut. Now these soaps were allowed to be set up in the mold for about 12 hours in a CPOP environment and then immediately put into the freezer so I could get them out of the PVC molds. Best thing you can do if you're messing with PVC is to put your soap molds in the freezer and freeze the soap. And so all the shininess you see there, that is not any weeping, that is not any weirdness going on with the vinegar that's inside or anything else. They are just, they're thawing, really. It's kind of like ice. Anyway, so that's kind of cute. That looks like a banana. That's fun. I like that. But yeah, so I did not actually allow these to set up in CPOP for too terribly long before putting them into the freezer to firm up. And there was no reason outside of that. There's no reason to that outside of I needed my molds again. And so I didn't have enough time for them to just sit and finish complete saponification in CPOP before sticking them into the freezer. I was not concerned about any extra heat. I was not concerned about any of that. I did just need my molds again. So needed to freeze them up so I could get all the soaps out. Now I cut these all with a serrated blade. The reason I did that is because it's kind of not a good idea. And by kind of not a good idea, I mean the worst idea possible to run your things like loofah soaps or anything with like a melt and pour embed through your wire cutter. The wires are not actually equipped to handle that, and you are going to end up with broken wires. Do you need a serrated blade though? No, you don't. And as you can see, I'm having to clean up all of the serrated blade marks on every single soap as a result because I only had a serrated blade, which I'm pretty sure used to be like a bread cutter blade. That's all I had on hand, but that's cute. And the color itself, I think that was supposed to be the one that was copper on the outside, or maybe pink. I don't know. But the pink, no, it's definitely not the pink one because that's the pink one. But the pink on the inside of that totally worked, didn't it? Look, like the interior loofah has been dyed a different color. And that's what I was playing with the Midwest Soapery, micas. Can we make the micas be a different color, or can we make the loofahs rather be a different color by dyeing them with micas before we put them into the soaps? The answer is yes, we can. Now, there are trade-offs to all of that because, again, in order to really ensure that these colors really stick to whatever substrate you're trying to dye, you got to do the whole Easter egg thing and put some vinegar in. And when you start introducing vinegar into your soap recipes, you run into some potential complications. And the biggest complication is, as I have already mentioned multiple times in this video, it eats the lye. The vinegar eats the lye, and it eats it in different ways than citric acid does because these are two different acids. And the chemical compound that is then formed after it has eaten the lye from, well, the sodium hydroxide, after it has eaten the sodium hydroxide, the vinegar creates a different chemical compound that doesn't really have a whole lot of use in soap making. And again, we're talking about this more in depth, later on, but I figured the small amount of vinegar that would be left in all of this would be negligible enough that this would still produce a very moisturizing, very big bubble, beautiful bar of soap without any sort of drying, and that would really benefit skin that is being exfoliated because that's the loofah, right? That's the point of a loofah soap, is for pretty heavy exfoliation. And when you start kind of sloughing away all of the dead skin cells that exist on your body, well, now your new fresh skin is exposed and it can feel dry or tender or, whatever. And so my thought was shea butter plus coconut oil equals perfect loofah soap. And so we don't actually know that yet, but in the secondary testing part of all of this, yeah, you can also dye the loofahs. That's fun. I had never thought to do that before. Now, I've shown you guys loofah soaps on the channel a number of times before and have always, told you that the best thing to do is to soak the loofahs, the dry loofahs, in water to hydrate them because it makes it easier for them to actually accept all the soap batter once you start pouring into them. And so this is just another method of that, but also using vinegar and dye to color the loofahs inside. And I'll be goddamned if it didn't work. Like, how cool is that? I think very cool, honestly, when it's all said and done. And so I guess the ones on the end were supposed to be the copper with the blue, with the pink exterior. And it's pinkish, right? On the left side there. But that's definitely a bright blue loofah inside of that. Like, that worked. And that's fun. So, one test is a success, but we really have to move on to the secondary test, which is the lather for these loofahs to see if they actually do what I thought this recipe would do, which again, big bubble and nice and moisturizing on the hands while still providing the exfoliation that we all know and love from a loofah soap. So, we're going to show you all three of these together, and then we're going to go on and we're going to test these guys because a lather test is always a ton of fun. So, here are all three together. They're very cute. Blink and you'll miss them. Oh, yep, there they are. And now on to the test. Now, these have set up for about a week at this point. I wanted to make them firm enough to actually do a proper lather test on them, I guess. But the real reason was I was in Napa. But look how beautiful that lather is. Immediate lather payoff from that. And my skin feels amazing. There is none sliminess going on. There is none drying going on. It's just a really beautiful, gentle exfoliation with an epic lather. Very, very moisturizing. Very beautiful. One of the problems with all of this is you see, though, we got some color transfer. So little bit too much mica. Now we know that. But yeah, these were 2 really fun tests and a really cool recipe, so you should try that. That is day 199, the new loofah soaps. And there they are, the 2022 body buffers. And they're all very awesome. Love the lather, very, very cool. Expected the discoloration in one of those, a little bit surprised about the other 2, but all very great, cute batches of soap, and that recipe, it's fire. Like, it's a good recipe. I love the big bubble. I'm still not sold on using that much, because while I do put exfoliants in my shave bars, I feel like that's a little bit too much exfoliation right before shaving. It feels like, especially for like sensitive bits, it feels like that much exfoliation and then dragging a razor across it might be a little much. So tomorrow we're going to give you a shave recipe to do if you also find that maybe this is a little bit too much exfoliation. So look forward to that. If you're interested in these loofah soaps, I'm not putting them on the website until January. So there's that. That's all there is to it. January 1, we can start shopping again, but we are so close to Christmas that if you're still buying things, you need to stop, cease, desist. Do not stop. Give your credit card a break. See you in January at the website at soapandclay.com. Like, I see you here every day, but if you want to buy things, everything gets restocked in January, for sure. If you're interested in coming back for tomorrow's recipe, I mean, you could hit the subscribe button and become a Sudser. If you are a Sudser, hey, Sudser, how are you? Have you been giving your credit cards a break? You need to do that thing. It's good for everybody, for sure. I'm out of here for today, but I will see all of you guys again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.